Okay, Weird, the Al Yankovic story. Please go here. Feel free to comment on anything um, you're gonna hear from me. I'm up for a very lively debate, of course, as per usual. And anybody that has seen the movie, of course, let me know. You love this movie? All right, hell yeah. Well, for those of you that haven't seen the movie, it is a 2022 American biographical parody film, which is an interesting point that we'll come back to. Okay, it was directed by Eric Apple in his feature directorial debut, and this for a directorial debut, I think, is pretty good. Who co-wrote the screenplay with Al Yankovic. The film is satire of biopics and is loosely based on Yankovic's life and career as an accordionist and parody songwriter. It stars Daniel Radcliffe as Al Yankovic, along with Evan Rachel Wood, Rainn Wilson, Toby Huss, Arturo Castro, and Julian Nicholson in supporting roles. And essentially the story behind this film, so very, very loosely. Yeah, we'll come back to that, dude. We'll come back to that, don't worry. Alright, so the story behind like the production of this film, I'm just recite you this short thing that I found interesting. A fake trailer for a satirical biographical film was produced by Apple, the director, for Funny or Die in 2010. Yankovic showed the trailer at his concert, which led to fans questioning when the full-length film would be made, and leading Apple and Yankovic to develop the film's concept together. Weird, the Al Yankovic story was filmed on a budget of around $8 million, which is extremely low for a movie of this size, over 18 days between February and March 2022, which is also insane. It premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival on September the 8th, 2022, and was released on the Roku channel, of all places, on November 4th, 2022. The film received positive reviews, with particular praise for its humor and Radcliffe's performance. Now, Roku original film. When I saw that at the beginning, I was like, what the fuck? Roku is, to my knowledge, a very dying, VOD platform, so I was quite surprised. Okay, so here's the interesting part about the beginning of the movie. The movie opened up, and as I always do, by the way, I do not do any kind of research prior to watching any movie for the review. All right, I do a little bit of research when I watch a movie for my own pleasure, just so I know that I want to commit 2 hours of my life to something. I kind of research it. No. That's not about you, Gautier. Don't worry. What you told me was only like the kind of actors that played in it, and that didn't influence my viewing pleasure at all. In fact, I'll tell you why in a second, why it didn't influence me at all. So I didn't make any research at all, So I, started watching the movie with a full expectation that I'm going to watch a biopic of an artist, similar to Bohemian Rhapsody, for example, for those of you that's seen it. I fully went into the movie and expected, okay, I'm watching a biopic, a serious biopic of this guy's life, because he's an interesting character. It's kind of weird that they did a biopic before he's passed, but hey, whatever, like they did a biopic, sure. So I go into it with my full, reviewing chops, experience of years and years and writing and everything, and I'm like meticulously examining it, and straight off the rip, I'm like, okay, there's narration at the beginning, the sort of something that I don't really like usually, but it wasn't like straight expositional narration, because it was narrated by Weird Al, not I don't think himself, but like it was supposed to be like Weird Al's character narrating his life, so it was at least an unreliable narrator, and this kind of like added to it a little bit. Then we sort of started with a Weird Al. The intro scene is essentially Weird Al being revived in a hospital after a car crash, and then, freeze frame, and the narrator starting, basically in the classic, yeah, that's me, you might be wondering how I ended up here. He didn't literally say that, but it was pretty much the same thing, only written a little bit different, so I was like, oh god, this is fucking... We starting off with a cliche like that, like, this is fucking ridiculous. So I was pretty unhappy there. I noticed some things that I liked, kind of, like, for example, that they didn't, when they rewinded all the way back, they didn't show us the date, but instead there was like a little radio signal, or like radio static, and then the like radio announcer talking about what President Nixon just said. So that was a very clever way of sort of immediately dating us without having the classic lazy title, like, you know, LA 1973 or whatever the fuck that every filmmaker does, essentially, right? There was like some nice kind of way of presenting the detractors' opinion. Like the detractors of Al Yankovic's work would I imagine say that, you know, parody songwriting isn't real art and blah blah blah. And this whole thing was sort of presented at like a family dinner of his parents telling him this sort of thing, which I found um, really fun, or really interesting. But then I immediately got very angry because, and here's literally what I wrote in my fucking analysis. Okay, I wrote, unfortunately, the writing is absolutely atrocious. The mother says, we had a long talk and we agreed it would be best for you to stop being who you are and stop doing the things you love. And at this point, I was like starting, like I wrote this, I'm like, what the fuck, like who the fuck wrote this? Like what? Nobody talks like that. And then like it's sort of like started hitting me very slowly. Again, as I said, I've been tired for several days because of the heat, right? But it sort of started hitting me like, this is so bad that it might be like a satire. Like, is it? Like, but like, surely, like I would know by now, right? But I kept going. I kept thinking this is like a serious movie, serious biopic, right? And then the dad just brutally attacks a traveling salesman that gives the accordion to that sells the accordion to Weird Al as a boy, right? And he brutally attacks him and nearly kills him, essentially beating him up. I'm like, okay, so I guess like they're supposed to be like kind of funny and stuff. And it's like it felt like kind of weird and childish, and I still like wasn't kind of wasn't getting it at all. And then the Hey Boy came around. Okay, there's a scene in the movie where Weird Al is sort of already going to school, and his mates are saying, "Hey, we have this like cool party at this house. You know, why not come join us?" And he's like, "Nah, parents." Like Weird Al says, "Now my parents keep watching me. You know, my mother keeps tucking me up into bed. You know, I can't sneak out essentially." And they tell him there's this thing called the Hey Boy, and then we cut to a scene of the mother tucking in Weird Al, except Weird Al is literally like pieces of hay tied together to look like a human, but it's very obviously hay. So I was looking at it like, okay, now I get it. It's satire. And then, and only then, did I know what I was actually fucking watching. Okay? But I still did not know to what extent the film is going to take it. You know, I thought that they had like they had to make it kind of funny because it's about Weird Al. So I expected that there's gonna be like some satirical parts to it, but I was not prepared I was not prepared for what's going to come next. Yeah, the movie started to be kind of funny. I must admit. At several points, I kind of started to be a little frightened that where's my mouse? There it is. I started to be a little frightened that the movie will just descend into some kind of like absolute silliness with no discernible structure, like a Robin Hood Men in Tights or like Airplane kind of. But it never did. The structure remained intact. Al is everything, as is everything weird. Al, this parody of as is everything weird. Al, this is parody of a biopic. I am not sure what you meant by that. It was a weird formulation, but yeah, like I'm think I'm getting what you mean. Yeah, yes, like eventually. I began to realize that much like Weird Al parodizes songs, popular songs, the Weird Al movie not only parodizes like Weird Al's life itself, but also biopic filmmaking. So yes, I was sort of like getting to that point, but you were right, Gautier. Like I wanted to get there eventually, but I'm actually glad that you brought it here, just so we don't, drag our feet. Yes, I found out throughout all of this. No, don't say sorry. I'm glad that this is not supposed to be a monologue, so I'm glad when you're sort of pushing me, because then the review, I think, becomes more interesting when I'm reacting to you rather than reading from my little fucking notepad to my side. So yeah, he writes parodies for songs. Did you expect anything else? Exactly. Like, I think that this is exactly the idea that the movie had, and the thing that they wanted to express the most. And in that regard, I think that they did tremendously. And that is sort of my main point with all of this. Like, the idea that the biopic for Weird Al is in itself going to be a parody, much like his songs, is very charming in my opinion, and they managed to execute it very, very well. There are a bunch of very, very funny moments. The party that I was talking about that Weird Al went to was actually a polka party. So, they're playing the accordions and stuff like that, and Weird Al is freaked out because he promised his mother that he will never be seen playing the accordion. So it's a bunch of exciting moments there. Also, incredible cast. Daniel Radcliffe obviously has an amazing performance as Weird Al, especially his singing is absolutely great. But I don't know if you guys noticed it, but he definitely still has a very detectable British accent in some words that he uses. So, like, during dialogue, I could very often detect his Britishness, anti-polka instead of anti-drug. Yeah, there's obviously a bunch of like spoofs and satires to all bunch of popular media or life in general. Like, essentially he being portrayed, and thank you for bringing it up, Gautier. Essentially what the parents are against, and like the way that they are interacting with Weird Al, or young Weird Al, when it comes to like playing of accordion, is essentially almost like parents trying to like warn off their son from taking drugs, essentially. And him, he is then, sort of coaxed by the people at the party to play the accordion, and he does. And then the party is busted, and the police take Weird Al back to his house, and then in a very concerned voice tell his parents that he's been caught playing the accordion, which of course is sort of like, a funny exaggeration, or rather a satire about kids taking drugs, essentially, and parents being against that and all that. So yeah, there's a bunch of that kind of humor there, but it doesn't stop at that either. There's lots of like moments that are like very funny, sort of like cultural references. Like, for example, on this party that you're seeing on screen right now, Weird Al actually impresses the bass guitarist for the Queen, who is impressed so much that he invites Weird Al to play with the Queen at Live Aid. By the way, for those of you that don't know, one of the biggest concerts that ever happened, one of the most culturally and historically significant concerts that ever happened, and Weird Al looks at him for a while, and then he just shouts "hard pass," which is quite funny, because just flat out rejects that. It's interesting. Rainn Wilson as Dr. Demento and Conan O'Brien as Andy Warhol. Is that party scene was just pure genius casting? Yeah, it was very funny. Sorry. I'm very sorry that Conan couldn't play a little bit more, but I understand. He's not an actor, but his audition was great. Rainn Wilson is an absolutely amazing actor, and I loved him as Dr. Demento for sure. There are lots of funny moments. I think that the film did, or rather the director, I don't know if it was his doing, but I'm gonna kind of attribute it to him. I think he sort of allowed Rain to um, to really dazzle us with his own character, sort of, or his own charisma. I really saw the kind of funniness that Dwight exhibited in the later seasons of The Office. Rainn Wilson, of course, became famous as Dwight Schrute in The Office, and Dr. Demento in this movie has a very similar kind of humor and facial gestures and movement and all that. So it really reminded me there of that, and I think that it's down to Rainn Wilson, obviously, who has this charisma, as this comedic charisma, but also the director, who sort of gave him a space to sort of express himself that way. So big up the director, and for this to be his debut, amazing stuff. The moments that I found the most funny and the most entertaining by default, of course, are moments where, like, it's difficult to describe. It's sort of like, the way I described it in my notes is feigned epicness that actually communicates like yeah, feigned epicness, essentially. That's like so epic but so funny in a way that it creates this very humorous scene. We can see it, for example, in in a moment where Weird Al gets the inspiration for My Bologna, which is at a moment where he's making bologna sandwiches with his roommates, and like he starts making these sandwiches, and he's looking at My Bologna, and then the original for that song that I don't know starts playing in the radio, and it sort of gets stuck, and it's getting stuck to the chorus that he would spoof, Weird Al would spoof as My Bologna, and he keeps staring at this bologna for an uncomfortably long time, and there's this like sort of like gradual increase of the music, and there's this tension. He's looking at it with his eyes, and he's like transfixed completely, and it's dragged out for so long that it's like this incredibly unnecessarily epicness, Jesus Christ, incredibly unnecessarily epic moment, and that's sort of the humor that like that I like, where like a moment that's not maybe ordinary, but nowhere near as tense, like that essentially it over exaggerates the epicness or the intensity of that moment to a degree where it's funny. I like that kind of humor. And same thing goes for Weird Al's LSD trip, where he's tied in like a massive factory that turns into hell, and then heaven, and then hell again. And he gets another inspiration for a song there as well, I think. And the whole scene where Dr. Demento is actually in his bathtub of Weird Al's mansion, and he's eating like nachos with guacamole, and then Weird Al has some, and Dr. Demento, after Weird Al ingests them, informs him that the guacamole is laced with LSD, which is also a very funny moment that I enjoyed very much indeed. But I wasn't to know the full extent of the satire that I was watching until the movie was decided to completely retell very well-known historical facts in a very funny way. And only then was I actually impressed with the movie. So essentially what they did is they made Weird Al in the movie want to become an original writer, an original songwriter, because he felt that parody songs, like making parody songs, it just isn't the kind of high art that that he sort of aspires to. So he writes a song called "Eat It," which is a real song, and it's like a cool song about a mother not being able to make their child eat, you know. But it's like in the movie, it's his original song, and then like a little bit later, Michael Jackson copies it and writes "Beat It," which of course in reality Michael Jackson first wrote "Beat It," and then Weird Al spoofs it as "Eat It," but in the movie it's the other way around. And there's this very funny moment where Weird Al learns about it in like a diner or like a restaurant, right? And he gets super angry at Michael Jackson, this random dude from Jackson 5 who just spoofs his song. Like, is he even allowed to do that? Like, this is like copyright infringement and all that. So it's very funny that they make him like try to be like they make him like an original songwriter in this movie, and that all these other artists are copying him. Like, for example, Amish Paradise, another famous song by Weird Al that's a spoof on, or rather a parody of Gangsta's Paradise by Coolio. They not only made him like in the movie, Weird Al writes this as an original script, but it's a original song rather, but it's very much tied to his family, to his father telling him about his Amish past. And then as he performs it live at the before an audience, Coolio is actually sitting in the stands, sort of looking at him angrily, sort of in a way. Like, it almost seems in the movie that he's mad that Weird Al came up with it first, which of course isn't true in real life. Or that he's like plotting to, or maybe, you know, there's just a look, so it's open to interpretation. Like, I interpreted it as Coolio, like, you know, he was looking like this, sort of like scheming to steal this tune and make his Gangsta's Paradise. So that was a funny bit. And I was like, okay, I see what you're putting down, movie. It's pretty funny, I guess. And then the movie just went completely haywire. They made Weird Al, you know, date Madonna, by the way, in this very codependent relationship where Madonna is there just to like make him do like a surgeon, make him do like a parody song on her music. To get the Yankovic bump, essentially, because that's, by the way, a real thing. Whenever Yankovic spoofed a parody song, the original artist's songs would also soar in the charts. So Madonna is this like manipulative woman in this movie where she like manipulates him to parody her own songs and you know, a bunch of other like manipulations that like she essentially tries to manipulate him to her ends. It is an homage to the brief feud between Coolio and Al, more on the part of Coolio. Yeah, I actually read about that in my research as well. Don't worry, I did my due diligence. So yeah, the story goes essentially that Coolio was actually kind of mad at Weird Al in real life. By the way, now I'm talking about Weird Al. I mean, real life. Holy shit. He was kind of mad at Weird Al for spoofing his song. Like he wasn't a fan until he actually listened to it a couple of years later, where he listened to it and he admitted in an interview that he found it funny as shit. And then they did actually reconcile. There was a reconciliation between Weird Al and Coolio. And upon Coolio's death, Weird Al even posted like them two hugging on his Instagram or whatever. So yeah, that was an homage there, which is a very important point actually, Gautier. Thank you for telling me that. Because like the movie doesn't just do like bullshit, you know, it doesn't do just random shit. It takes like a grain of truth and then it spoofs it satirizes it, which is, by the way, a great segue to what you're seeing on the screen right now. Weird Al in this movie becomes an assassin after Pablo Escobar kidnaps Madonna. and gets her back to Colombia to make Weird Al perform for him, essentially, on his birthday. Now, the grain of truth there is that it is believed that Pablo Escobar was actually a fan of Weird Al. There were some records found in I'm not sure whether it was La Hacienda Napoles, his original home, or La Catedral, which was the prison which he built himself. So yeah, essentially, Weird Al has this kind of Rambo moment where he kills a bunch of people in the Colombian jungle, and then he storms into this warehouse, this drug cartel warehouse, and confronts Pablo Escobar, eventually killing him, and saving Madonna. Right? So they're taking this whole thing like. For example, the thing about Madonna, right? Weird Al Yankovic and Madonna were never in a relationship in real life. But there is a story about Madonna's manager, or rather Madonna, wanting Weird Al to spoof Like a Virgin. That she did actually want that in real life. But, she didn't really press on it or anything. But it just so happened that her agent knew Weird Al, or somebody in Weird Al's circle, so he did push it through a little bit just so Weird Al hears it, and he did hear it, and he was like, yeah, that's a good idea, I guess. And then he made Like a Surgeon, a spoof of Like a Virgin. So there's this little story, but they spoofed it out of complete proportion, which I think is very hilarious. Although I must say this movie's treatment of Madonna is crazy. I didn't actually. That's one thing that I forgot to research about what Madonna thinks about this story. Let me look it up with you guys right now. Madonna's thoughts on Weird Al movie. Madonna never actually gave her permission or approval for her portrayal in the Weird Al Yankovic movie. There's literally nothing about this in this article, dude. I've been clickbaited. Fuck. I don't know. No idea. No, I can't find it. Oh well, whatevs. I did find that Weird Al asked his lawyers if it's okay if they portray Madonna or if they should get permission, and the lawyers said, nah, don't worry about it. Essentially, they were allowed to. They didn't get her permission, but their lawyers said that they didn't need it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I found. Anyway, so yeah, they expertly spoof the tiniest little bits of fun facts about Weird Al's life to epic proportions, which is exactly what he would do to music. So I think they did that very, very well, as I said before. Now, as a person that was born in 1998 and was never really a huge fan of Weird Al, I've only come, to know him from popular media and also watching the music video for Amish Paradise. But that's literally it. And of course, hearing Like a Surgeon from time to time. But I'm absolutely I know nothing, right? So for me personally, it was kind of difficult to be able to tell what's true and what's not true about the movie. I obviously knew that they didn't he didn't raid a Colombian jungle and didn't have this crazy relationship with Madonna. I was pretty sure, but like I wasn't sure about other things, which I think made it even more interesting for me as a viewer to not know exactly the truth. Like for example, right? This is a perfect example, I think. Um, Weird Al in this movie wears like a bracelet of platinum records, and he said like in like an interview with Oprah in this movie that he went quintuple platinum, and that he became a sensation overnight, which of course is not exactly true. And I assume that the quintuple platinum was once again the movie just kind of like exaggerating his fame a little bit, but no. Weird Al, I found later in research, he does actually have 6 platinum records. 6 fucking platinum records, dude. So, yeah, that was true, and I thought that was just a spoof, a satire in the movie. So it's very interesting that even some moments that feel exaggerated are actually not exaggerated at all. And the narration comes back from time to time as well, sort of revealing the point that I had a little bit more as the narration being part of the themes, not just a blunt expositional tool. So when Weird Al is leaving the jungle, the narrator says that I love being Weird Al. The music, the parties, being the best assassin in the world, joining the Illuminati, learning the truth about the moon landing. Like this sort of thing. When you have narration, that's what you need to do. You need to add something extra to it. You need to make it part of the movie. And here it fits perfectly because not only is it spoofing the life of Weird Al, but the genre as a whole. In pure Weird Al fashion, you never know what part is real. That's great. Yeah, exactly. I think a huge, credit goes to the fact that Weird Al actually co-wrote this movie and co-created it. So his influence is very, very felt there, very much felt there, which is excellent because this is precisely what the movie set out to do. And it executed it perfectly, which sort of brings me up to this larger point about movies that I don't know if I'm just talking maybe this is a little bit irrelevant, but I felt like I was gonna mention it because this is a thought that occurred to me when watching this movie. Because at the end of the day, right, the movie is great. I had fun, but I didn't really feel a lot of emotion that I feel watching other movies. But then at the end of the day, how do you compare a movie like this to a movie like The Whale, for example, or Everything Everywhere All at Once? Because those are movies that are supposed to make you question perhaps your existence, whilst this one is more just kind of fun and celebrating this genre of music and this character and just having fun with it essentially. And it occurred to me that I think the most important thing, maybe not the most important thing, but maybe when judging movies, right, is what it is they set out to achieve and whether they achieved it. Because this movie set out to achieve a story about Weird Al, and to make it in a truly Weird Al kind of fashion, which I think everybody can agree that they did that perfectly. And to the question of would they set out to achieve, whether that was worth it, I would say yes. He's a globally popular man, and his style of music as well as style of comedy and humor still brings joy to many others. So that as well, that is the motivation behind its purpose, or rather the value of it. The value of setting out to do such a movie. So in that way, it's a great movie. And you should put this one up on YouTube. You think so? You like it? You like this review? I hope so. I didn't post anything there in such a fucking long while. But yeah, maybe. Maybe I will. But yeah, I was so glad, towards the end of the movie, that they decided to actually go all out and actually make Weird Al movie in a Weird Al style. because there's nothing really in this movie that you can just like say, I don't know, like this is shitty, or like this is weird, or whatever. Like this theme doesn't quite ring true, or this writing is a little strange, because it's all done very expertly in the purpose of satirizing and spoofing small increments of truth, much like, once again, the parody music that Weird Al does. And what impressed me even more is that they went a little bit above and beyond at not only parodizing his life, but also parodizing biopics themselves. They actually parodized, or satirized rather, the genre of biopics, right? So I would like now to return to my point at the beginning, what I felt before watching the movie. I felt it was kind of weird to make a biopic about an active artist, an artist that's still active, that still produces stuff, you know, because it feels like it's incomplete. But then the movie obviously felt a similar way to what I do, and actually had an answer to it, which impressed me even more. The answer to that movie was Weird Al being revenge killed by Madonna for leaving her by her Colombian sicario, or Colombian assassin, essentially assassinating him at the Grammy Awards with a massive machine gun and killing him. And then that's when the movie ends, is where the the Weird Al essentially dies, and then there's text on screen, much like in any biopic, like Weird Al died after being assassinated by a Colombian guerrilla in 1985. You know, his art carries on. Madonna is still at large. You know, all this funny stuff. So they in this very true to Weird Al fashion of humor and satire, they managed to give an answer to like a question that I felt needed to be answered, but still, you know, wasn't central to the story. Like, why make a biopic about someone that's still alive and active as an artist? That's because he isn't actually still alive. He's dead. He died in 1985, killed by Madonna, or rather on Madonna's orders. Yeah. So yeah, in conclusion, thank you for the drinks on me, by the way, Gautier, I appreciate it, and I will be redeeming that shortly. It's a great feel-good movie. You don't have to think about it too much, so it's excellent to like relax with on a weekend, and it genuinely is funny. And it's a movie that doesn't like offend you in like in uses of cliches or like unfunny or cringe stuff that many movies, in my opinion, like Robin Hood Men in Tights do. I'm sorry, Gautier, I keep shitting on that movie all the time. Anyway, because even when it does use cliches in this movie, it's always on purpose. It seemed like, because it's satirizing the biopic genre, it has sort of like a pass in that regard, because it is satirizing the cliches that you would find in a biopic film for its own good. You know, much like the You Might Be Wondering How I Got Here at the beginning, or the titles at the end explaining that Weird Al died and all of that. It's all sort of interwoven in this satirical take on Weird Al's life, as much as a satirical take on biopic movies as a whole. So yeah, in conclusion, much like Weird Al parodies music, this film parodies reality and biopic genre in itself, and it's great. So yeah, I loved it. It was great. It was a good movie. It was a good movie. And now, if any Zoomers are listening to this, whether on Twitch or on YouTube, because yes, Gautier, I decided to put this one on YouTube, I have here a little bit of a list of what's actually real in this movie. Because I myself, a Zoomer that is not a huge Weird Al fan, I got lost from time to time, which actually did not take away from my enjoyment of the movie, but I was a little confused and I did need to make a little bit of research of what actually happened there. Yeah. So, Weird Al's first accordion came from a traveling salesman. That is actually true. Dr. Demento was actually a key figure in Weird Al's life early on, but you know, he wasn't like his mentor the entire time. The fact that the breakthrough hit My Bologna was recorded in a bathroom is actually a fact. That is true. It wasn't at a bus station, but it did happen in a bathroom nonetheless. Many musicians did get the Yankovic bump. That was a real thing, as I said. Yankovic's stage name came from being weird growing up. Dr. Demento didn't actually come up with it, but Weird Al Yankovic himself came up with it because he was still a bit of an outcast. He was a bit of an outcast, as you know, when he was younger. Now, some other questions for those of you that are still interested, by the way. Did Weird Al's parents really disapprove of his career? The answer to that, though they were strict in other ways, Yankovic's parents didn't forbid him from getting into polka, and in fact, they bought Yankovic an accordion before he turned 7 years old. So it was the parents that bought it for him. Also, Yankovic's roommates weren't his bandmates. He has a band. That is true in real life as well, and he had it for several decades, but they weren't actually roommates. Also, yeah, another question. Did Weird Al really get famous the way he does in Weird? Kind of, although the movie fudges the details in its winking, self-aware way. In Weird, Yankovic mails a cassette tape to My Bologna to the Captain Buffoon show, making him an instant celebrity. In reality, it was a radio host, Dr. Demento, actually himself, who first played Yankovic's music on the air when Yankovic was just 16. It was an original song, Belvedere Cruising, not a parody. Yankovic was not an instant star, but his fame grew in college and beyond, with Dr. Demento continuing to feature his music on the radio, including My Bologna. Also, Oprah Winfrey did actually interview Weird Al, although it didn't go as as terribly as it did in the movie. Obviously, also, did Weird Al really write "Eat It" before Michael Jackson released "Beat It"? No, he did not. The movie just made that up, which is funny. That was essentially the joke. Also, as I said, he did not actually date Madonna. That was not a thing. But the story that I explained to you, that actually happened. Weird Al was never much of a drinker either. He never really had a drinking problem, as far as we know, and he stayed away from drugs because he felt it would be disrespectful to his parents to do drugs. Also, obviously, he did not win a Grammy for perhaps not technically the best, but arguably the most famous accordion player in an extremely specific genre of music. That is not a real category in the Grammy, by the way. Okay. Coolio. The story we already kind of told it here with Coutier, but I think it's an interesting story, so might as well read it to you once again. Coolio can be seen fuming in the audience, if only for a few seconds, as Daniel Radcliffe's Yankovic performs the song towards the end of the movie. It's true that the rapper famously objected to Weird Al's parody of Gangsta's Paradise, saying he'd never given permission for the spoof. However, the two eventually reconciled, with Coolio later calling the song actually funny as shit. After he finally listened to it, Yankovic posted a picture of himself hugging Coolio on Instagram in September after news broke of the rapper's death. Some of the things that the movie made up, Pablo Escobar was really a fan of Weird Al. That was actually true. Did he really lure Weird Al to perform at his birthday party by kidnapping Madonna? No. Weird Al really traveled into the jungle to rescue her and then kill Pablo Escobar and his cronies? Did not really happen. Did Madonna really propose that they take over the drug cartel together? Also, surprisingly, the movie made up. And did he really order Weird Al's assassination at the Shrine Auditorium in 1985? Not really. He's still alive. Did Ronald Reagan really speak at a Weird Al's funeral? No, because he did not have a funeral. Weird Al, that is. Weird Al really then claw his way out of the grave like the after credits sequence. Oh shit. I did not see the after credits sequence. Fuck. Shit, yeah, I never wait for after credits sequences. I didn't see that. Holy shit. Well, that's the new information for me. Wow, interesting. Okay, this is the joke at the end. I like it. I like it. The after credit stuff was great. Fuck. Well, I didn't see it. That's unfortunate. Well, anyway, that is it for the review. I hope that even the Zoomers... Holy shit, I actually have fucking sweat stains. Oh my god. Well, I'm not gonna raise my arms again. No, thank you. Anyway. It's fucking hot in here, okay? Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, it's hot, okay? It's hot. 30 fucking degrees Celsius. I can't fucking handle that. Anyway. That is it for the review. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you guys have any questions, let me know.